Let's roll.
All right, we're ready to go. All right, it's 7 o'clock straight up. Welcome everyone to the Township Future Speaker Series. Tonight, we're very happy to have three candidates that we're supporting for the Woodlands Township Board of Directors election that will occur in November. Early voting, of course, starts in October, and we'll give you those details in just a little while. So we're very happy to have three very good candidates that we think you all will be happy with and happy to get to know tonight. We're going to ask each one of them to just give a brief introduction of their background, their experience, and who they are. We're going to give you the opportunity to ask questions of the candidates, either individually or collectively, if you wish to do so. Please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You're welcome to type in your questions at any time. We will get to those after each of the candidate has had their time to introduce themselves and give a little bit of their history. So we're going to give each candidate anywhere between 10 to 12 minutes to give their background and say what they want to say. And then we'll wrap it up with the Q&A, and we'll have a little dialogue at the end between Walter and myself. So Township Future is a PAC that we put together a couple of years ago to try to provide education and advocacy for certain opportunities here in the Woodlands. We want to make sure that the residents of the Woodlands have all the information that they could possibly need when they go to the polls. So we're very happy to have you join us tonight, and we appreciate the time that you put in to being here with us. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to my partner, Walter, who will introduce the candidates to you, and then we'll go straight to the candidates. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ted, and thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening. We've got three great candidates, as Ted has told you. Excuse me. The first is Dr. Ann Snyder. She's running for position 6 on the Township Board. Cindy Heiser is running for position 7, and Tricia Danto is running for position 5. And so, Ann, you look like you're the first one up, so get away.
Well, thank you, Walter, and a very special thank you to Township Future for hosting this evening and for giving all of us the opportunity to share a few thoughts. As Walter stated, my name is Ann Snyder, and I'm running for position 6 on the Woodlands Township Board. I'm running for my 5th term on the Woodlands Township Board, and someone may ask why. You know, what is it about the township that makes you want to run another time? Well, we'll share with you that I have a great passion for my family, my faith, and the Woodlands. And I believe in the foundation of the Woodlands. I had the opportunity to listen and meet Mr. Mitchell a number of times, especially when I served at Interfaith. And the foundation of the Woodlands is second to none. It is a community that embraces not only, of course, our environment and natural resources, but more than that, it embraces people. It embraces a foundation of all faiths, all ethnicities, all cultures, all socioeconomic groups, and all ages. And with that, it has built the #1 place to live, work, play, and pray. And it's wonderful to be here. My husband and I moved here in the 80s. We raised our 2 children. Our children went off to school, MIT and Baylor. Their best job offers were right back here in the Woodlands. And so our entire immediate family lives in this great community that we call home. When I think of another very integral part of serving on the Township Board, I'm a very strong believer in saying the same thing to one individual or one group as to another. I grew up in a family that not only our faith, but integrity mattered, and so did honesty. And I think that is something I have tried and hopefully been successful during my tenure on the Woodlands Township Board. So what I'd like to share, not only I've given you some personal information about me, just professionally, I was at the University of Houston for a number of years. My last position at the university was the Director of Field and Clinical working with 27 school districts in the College of Education. I then was the president CEO of Interfaith of the Woodlands. U of H, I loved. Interfaith of the Woodlands, I loved. Was also president CEO of the Interfaith Community Clinic, which I also had a great passion for. It was time to take a breath, and I had the opportunity to serve on the ministry staff at the Woodlands Methodist Church as the executive director of generosity. I helped people be more generous, which was a gift, and also head of the Woodlands Methodist School. Both were a gift to me by my church that allowed me to really learn and have a greater passion and fortitude in my faith. So we'll always be thankful to Dr. Rob for giving me the opportunity to be on his ministry staff. But I think what most people know me as is volunteering. Have a great passion. I grew up in a family that volunteering and community service was important. I did play golf when we first moved here and in my prior life prior to moving here. But what I really find my fulfillment is making a little difference, working with people, collaborating to make good things happen. And with that, a group of us, not just me, but we have hopefully made a difference in the Woodlands. There were three things growing up that learned. You need to have purpose, you need a great passion for that, and then be proud, not of yourself, but proud of the individuals and entities that make it happen. And saw that at each entity that I was professionally involved, but also in the nonprofit world. So what am I most proud of serving on the township board? I could list a number of things, but I think what I would like to highlight is what we were able as a board to accomplish during our 2024 budget season. We approved a tax rate equal to the no new revenue rate of 17.14 cents. And we were very, very proud of that. We were also able to offer a homestead exemption, the very first that we've been able to offer, as well as increasing our 65 and older from a 40,000 to 50,000, which will save these taxpayers an additional 1.6 million. Another, in addition to those items, we, for the very first time, expanded our enabling legislation. We, as a board, worked with two lobbyists, Schwartz, Page, and Harding, and Tommy Williams, who a lot of you in the audience may remember, to see the possibility of expanding our enabling legislation to receive the mixed beverage tax, which at the time only municipalities or cities were receiving. This was not a new tax. This was a tax that the state currently received. Fast forward, we were able to, under Representative Toth, House Bill 5311, able to have this bill pass, and it's projected to bring in 1.6 million approximately in 2024. The other part of the House Bill 5311, in addition to the mixed beverage tax, was an economic development zone that the hoteliers had really wanted the township to help carry. And this allows the hoteliers to add a 2% assessment on hotel bills for marketing and tourism. And so they were also very pleased to have the passage of 5311. The other that I've always felt was important is public safety, low tax rate, and also economic development. We added a total of 10 officers during the 2024 budget. We added 8 with Montgomery County Sheriff, 2 with Constable Gable in Montgomery County Precinct, 3 with Commissioner Gable, I misspoke, and 2 with Harris County for Creekside Park. And I know residents have a very strong feeling that public safety is critical in order for us to live the lifestyle and enjoy the amenities that we have. I think you'll also see the board traditionally as well continues to be fiscally conservative. We are only we are one of the only cities, townships, municipalities that hold a AA+ rating, S&P. Only 4% in Texas hold that rating. And we're able to do so much of what we did, such as the no new revenue rate, because 54% of our total budget comes from sales and hotel tax. 29% comes from our property tax that the residents pay, and 17% is other, be it grants, be it interest, and some of the revenue generators from our parks and recreation. So we are really a very, very strong entity within the greater state of Texas. The other that I would like to share is that our debt has been reduced since 2017 by 55%, which is remarkable, not only with this year's board, but in past boards. Our tax rate has been reduced by close to a little bit over 59% since 2010. And that is an accomplishment of all the boards working together. I will say collaboration has been a big piece of what I've always believed in and what the board has embraced. We are looking forward to seeing what we can do. The board has not had a meeting regarding this yet, but with regard to the Grogan's Mill Village Center. We also, during our budget, our 2024 budget, we set aside a non-property tax revenue source from our hotel tax to fund a major economic development project, such as, you'll love this, Walter, a performing arts center. And I know there's a lot of interest in the community as well as on the board that we move forward with that. And last, I don't know where I'm on time, Mr. Cook, but would like to say that next year, 2024, is our 50th anniversary. And we will kick it off in October of 2023, this month, and look for exciting opportunities for all of us as a community to participate, starting the end of October, 1st of November, all the way through December of 2024. I'm honored to be here this evening and very honored to be a part of your panel, and would encourage people to learn more about me on my website, www.nksnyder.com, as well as I'm always available to meet. And with that, Walter, I will turn it back to you, if that's all right.
That's certainly all right. Thank you very much, Ann. Appreciate
You're very welcome.
your comprehensive talk. Next up is Cindy Heiser for position 7. Okay, Cindy, it's all yours.
All right, I just had to unmute myself there. It's always great to follow Ann because she states all the wonderful things that our current board is doing, and I'm always so proud of the Woodlands when I hear her talk about that. So thank you for that, Ann, for all that great information. This is my first time to run for public office, so it's been very exciting, and I've been told that I don't tell enough about myself, so I'm going to start with that a little bit and tell you what I've actually done. I really truly follow the we, not me principle, so I'd rather brag about you than myself, but you kind of need to know who I am, so I am going to tell you. I moved to the Woodlands in 1999 with my family. We had come from Dallas, where I was an executive for Xerox Corporation after graduating from the University of Texas in Austin. And I worked at, hook 'em. We're doing good too. So how about that, Longhorn fans? And really was a career woman there, had a great career in sales. I was in the top 1% of the nation for sales. I worked for GE Information Services, actually selling some of the very first online catalogs when people didn't even know what that was or that they existed. So that's kind of my background and my technology background too. But we moved here for job opportunities and raised our children here. That started in 1999. And have lived here ever since, and I've loved every minute of it. So we have recently, well, I say recently, 7 years ago, we decided to open a business in the Woodlands area to benefit Woodlands residents. And we decided to go with a security firm called the Flying Locksmiths. That's a franchise model. We own Austin also, but it provides commercial security for businesses, schools, public entities in the Woodlands. So we're real proud of that. And we have consistently been in the top 10 in the nation for our business. So that's what we've been doing. And I want to back up in just a second. I remembered today that the first time I ever heard of the Woodlands was in 1976. I was a kid, but a pastor from where we lived at that time was moving here to open the First Baptist Church that's at the very front of the Woodlands. So I thought I would just give that little snippet there of information. His name was W.D. Broadway. Some of the things I've done in the community have been professional, but also charitable. I worked with the Junior League in the early 2000s to start a project that it's called Impact. We named it Impact during my time there, and it allowed a session for our local area teachers, educators to get their CTE credits during the summer in a really fun and informational way. And we actually brought in Jack Canfield and had 700 to 800 attendees during that time. And that session occurs just as we set it up today every year. I also was the chairman for Giving Goes Glam, and that is actually a charity that is no longer in existence. It's changed to The Walk, and it benefits interfaith, but it used to benefit Junior League and Interfaith, but we raised $300,000 that year when I was chairman of that organization. I have been in the leadership Montgomery County group, Rotary of the Woodlands, and I'm a Paul Harris Fellow. I chaired the gala during COVID, which was online. That was a very interesting experience. And I'm now secretary in line to be the president of Rotary in 3 years. It's quite a long track, but there's a lot to learn. I'm also on the Woodlands Art Council Board, where we contribute about $8 million to the community each year. And if you haven't been to the Arts Festival, you should. It's a wonderful, it's one of the best in Texas and maybe the United States. So why am I running for the township? I really started getting involved in local politics with Ann Snyder. I've known her for a very long time and would work for her to promote her during our campaigns and campaign for her. And I started to see what the township was all about and what a wonderful foundation that we have. Our small government structure is really unique and it's beneficial to the taxpayers. So I believe that our form of government really is one of the best. I want to get involved in that. And the current board is very forward-thinking. They are action-oriented. They get along well, and they're collaborating. And so I really would like to join a board that looks like that and wants to make progress for the residents and for the community. I want to keep the vision of George Mitchell alive in the future. We're in the middle of very expansive growth. As you know, everybody sees it all around us. and it affects a lot of different areas, which I'll start talking about. But primarily our mobility. There's a lot more traffic in the Woodlands than there was when we moved here in 1999 for many reasons. But that's one thing it does affect. And it also will be a strain on our resources, such as our emergency services. More people require more services, and also our resources for sure. And then also public safety issues are important too. So we're going to have to look at some preventative measures for public safety and continue to enhance our police force, just as the board currently did. And if you didn't know, our board had not invested in increasing police coverage in 7 years, 6 or 7 years. It's been a little while. I think that's an accurate number, which was really surprising to me because we have had a lot of growth in those years. So we really need to continue along the track of focusing on hotspots, where are crimes likely to occur, just by looking at statistics and, in our records and studying those locations. So that will take collaboration with the county, who we contract with, our law enforcement and our sheriff, Rand Henderson, currently. So that is what we need to do. Additionally, we are going to need to. So I've also learned that we need to reestablish some broken relationships that we have, that we're needing to mend. Over the last 6 years or so, maybe longer, we sort of have been behaving like we're an island, and the Woodlands really is not an island. And with our government structure, it's crucial that we deal collaboratively with the entities around us, with the elected officials around us, and with the county for sure. So those are really important relationships that need to be reestablished. And I've been always of the mindset that when you sit down at a table across from someone with a cup of coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is, you can get a lot more done than just assuming someone's opinion. So I think a lot more face-to-face. That is how I conduct business. And my door is always open. I always like to talk to people one-on-one. Another thing too, that I saw was recently, this past year, communication with residents is difficult. I've always thought that. I've always thought that the board was a little, it was hard to communicate with them unless you really knew someone on the board. And we have established some really great organizations, and that was at the lead of Richard Franks. He led this group, and it's the Village Association presidents. They meet with Richard once a month, and they take resident issues to Richard, who takes issues to the board. And I think that's fantastic. That's a step in the right direction. I've also noticed, though, that resident surveys are not well measured. Not a lot of people respond. When you get 10% on a survey, you really can't tell what the desires of the community are. So we have some ideas for improving those types of communication through technology and through some other ways to do those things. Tell me when I'm running out of time, because I'll keep talking.
You got another couple of minutes.
Okay, great. So a couple of other things. We talked about how low taxes are very important to our community in particular. And I was so pleased to see that since I moved here, our tax rates had dropped by approximately 60%, which is pretty amazing. So I'm glad that we're fiscally responsible as a government, and we need to continue along that path. We don't rely on property taxes primarily. We are relying more on the sales and use taxes, hotel taxes, and other sources of revenue. And along with HB 5311, which was recently passed that Ann referred to, we will be getting additional resources of revenue in the future. And I think there might be some more things that we can look at too. We need to just explore and stretch the boundaries there a little bit to see what might be possible. Another issue that I've seen pop up a little bit is talking about homelessness. I've met with a couple of different entities, Interfaith, and one of the gentlemen might be on the call on the Zoom right now, but a gentleman who represents Compassion International. And we spoke just about some different ideas for handling the homeless issue that we're starting to see in the Woodlands. It hasn't been an issue really in the past, but recently that has become more and more of an issue. So I think it's something that we're going to need to take a look at, and how to handle that compassionately, honestly. Also, we're going to be needing to just be here for all people. We have people from all over the world moving to the Woodlands. We're very international, we're very diverse, and we need to make all people of the community feel like they have a say in what we're doing as a government. And feel free to speak with us just as all of the other residents can. So those are the things that I'm looking at doing, and I hope that I can get your vote. Come out on October 23rd through November 1st. We'd love to see you there in the parking lot. And just please vote for Cindy Heiser. And if you'd like to contribute to my campaign, cindyheiser.com. And I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Walter, before we go on, let me just remind the audience, we do have a few questions already slated on the board, but use your Q&A feature down at the bottom of the screen to pose any questions that you may have, and we're certainly going to get to those in just a few minutes. All right, thanks, Walter.
All right, last but certainly not least, we have our Aggie with us tonight. Tricia Danto, who's running for position 5. It's all yours, Tricia.
Thank you so much, Walter. Thank you, Ted, for having me. It's a privilege to be here with Cindy and Ann, and I very much appreciate all of Ann's help with my campaign and guidance. My name is Tricia Danto. I moved to the Woodlands in 1992 when I was 12 years old, and I thought I moved to a foreign country when I moved to Texas, because I moved from Northern Virginia, and I was pleasantly surprised and loved it here so much. I've stayed, I've come back and raised my family here. I grew up in a family that really valued service. My mom taught at the Woodlands High School. She was Pat Lowe until about 5 years ago, and my dad was a law enforcement officer. So it really was ingrained in me, and I've taken that into the rest of my life. I was the second graduating class of the Woodlands High School, so I was that weird year that went to McCullough for 2 years and then went to the Woodlands. And after that, I went to A&M, graduated with my master's in finance and undergraduate degree in accounting, and decided to go work for Deloitte & Touche, which is one of those big 4 accounting firms. And my clients were predominantly real estate and government. So one of my first clients was the city of Houston, which was a very interesting client to have at the beginning of my career. And then my last client was Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C., which was a big restatement. And after that, I got pretty burned out and took a break from that and worked in nonprofit. My husband was accepted to Northwestern University, so we moved to Chicago so that he could pursue his master's degree, and lived up there for a while. When our oldest was born, we decided we needed to get out of there and we wanted to raise our daughters in the best place in America. So we moved back down to the Woodlands and came to where my parents are and settled here. I have 3 little girls. I have twins who are almost 10 in 4th grade, and my oldest is now in 7th grade at McCullough. When I first moved back here, I expected that I would just start working again, because I've always been this super type A personality person. But you know, it's funny how the best laid plans, things never work out the way that you think they are. I went blind and I couldn't walk all of a sudden. And what ended up happening was I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And that took me a period of time to recover. And learn to walk again and get my vision back and learn to cope with that. And it also gave me a very different perspective, I think, on my life and on what is important. And I really wanted to give back to the community and found my purpose, I think, volunteering and all these different organizations. And I started out working in our daughter's schools and in the Cochran's Crossing Village Association, and I really found my passion there. And I've worked in Cochran's Crossing for several years now. And on PTO, I took over as Vice President of Finance a couple of years ago. And one of my most rewarding things was raising enough money for a new playground structure, which just was installed a week ago. And all the children got to play on it, and seeing those pictures of them just filled me with so much joy. But did that, and I've worked throughout these past couple of years learning more and more about the township and about our community. I've joined the Residential Design Review Committee board, which is the group that if you want to change your fence, paint your house, we review those applications. And learned a lot about the design standards and covenants, which I think is important. I'm now chairman of the Cochran's Crossing Residential Design Review Committee, and I'm president of the Cochran's Crossing Village Association. So I've really built myself up throughout the community in those roles. Why did I decide to run? The bottom line is I love our community. I truly love our community. This is my hometown. I want to make it better for my children and for my parents who have retired here. I have a ton of ideas for ways that we can make improvements. I'm very happy to see the new board that was elected, and I'm very much a team player and can see myself being successful on the board in that role. I also represent a voice that isn't heard on the board right now. It's predominantly, Brad Bailey has younger children, but I would be the only mom with young children on the board. And I think that's important in a community that is predominantly families. I just have a different perspective. The things I want to do, I could talk forever. Number one is safety. Obviously, we're not the Woodlands if we don't feel comfortable letting our children play out in the cul-de-sac without worrying about them. I don't want that to ever go away. Right now, we're the 13th safest community in America, which is great. But I would like to see us aim to become the safest community in America. I think that's an achievable goal. And it doesn't mean just adding more police officers, because we just added 7. I think it's about education in our community. What I see on the Cochran's Crossing board all the time is we have residents, we hear the police reports, and the crime that we have in the Woodlands is predominantly a car was broken into because the door was unlocked. So it's a lot of resident education and increasing our neighborhood watch. And National Night Out is a big part of that, which is about to come up. So I could like to just a little shout out for that. It's this weekend on Sunday. If you're having a National Night Out party, go on out there, get to know your neighbors. And it also has another added benefit if we increase these services, because it increases the fabric of our community. That's what makes us the Woodlands, is when you know your neighbor and when you know what's happening across the street. I hear a lot of times people complaining that they don't have that sense of community anymore. So I would like this safety program would help build that up some more. Revitalization is something I think about a lot, because I remember when I moved here, Panther Creek Village Center was the thriving hub of the Woodlands, and I would ride my bike there, and that was so exciting to be able to ride my bike there, because my dad never let me get away with anything or do anything, and they felt safe enough to let me do that. It was a huge thing for me when we first moved here. But the village centers have a lot of empty storefronts, and that's where our residents spend majority of their time running errands. We don't go to the mall all the time, at least I don't go to the mall that often, but I go to Kroger probably 3 times a week. So I want to make sure our village centers are set up to succeed. And the board has done a wonderful job with the Grogan's Mill Village Center. I would like to see us take on Panther Creek Village Center and make sure also that Cochran's Crossing we're able to do everything that we can to help the centers. And maybe that is just using the tools that's available to the board, or increasing standards so that the shopping centers have to maintain a certain level. There's a lot of different things that we could maybe do. That's a really big priority for me. Sorry, I gotta drink a little water here, I get excited. Part of revitalization also, though, is updating homes. And on RDRC, I see a lot of people come in, and it's a cumbersome process. It's has all these steps for a reason, and it's important, and I don't want to go about changing any of our standards because they're important, and that's the foundation of the Woodlands. But I think there are ways that we could perhaps make it more efficient, especially in some of our aging communities. I think everyone's mentioned we're about to celebrate our 50th anniversary. So we want to encourage our residents in the aging areas to constantly refresh and update their homes so that we maintain an attractive community for home buyers. So I would like to put together a task force to see if there are ways that we can find efficiencies and encourage revitalization in the aging areas. I think everyone has mentioned relationships, rebuilding relationships. A lot of relationships throughout our community were damaged in the incorporation process. I don't think we can overstate that. The new board has done a wonderful job rebuilding those, and I would continue that effort. Cindy mentioned the President's Council with the village associations. Ted and I both serve on that. I think it's been a great new thing for us. I would like to increase the role of our village associations, because I think that that would increase their relevance and also help give residents a easier conduit to the board of directors, because it's easier to go to your village association meeting and tell them something's bothering you than go to the big township board meeting where it's kind of intimidating. And that would also get our village associations a little more involved. And I know that Ted, I don't know how often you guys have people come to your meetings. Probably not as often. Yeah, it would be nice to have more resident involvement. As far as revenue goes, I strongly support a performing arts center. I played in the band in high school when the mall opened, and I'll never forget that moment when all the balloons dropped and they had 80,000 people rushing into the mall to get all the sale items. It was crazy. And we were in the center of the mall, and Mr. Johnson, the band director, told us, run to the buses, because our instruments were getting damaged. People were so excited and frantic. And it was such a high point for our community. If you talk to anybody who lived in the Woodlands at that time, everyone remembers it. I think we need another moment like that. And a performing arts center would do that. And it would be a nice feather in our cap, but also it would pay for itself with the revenue that it would bring in. And a community of this size, we really should have a performing arts center. Also, continuing to bring in conferences and tourists, some of these more of the great races and events that we have that cover a lot of the revenue for the township, so that we're able to continue to provide such a high level of service to our residents without increasing property taxes. That would be a priority of mine. I always have in the back of my mind that the Woodlands is almost completely built out now. So we're not going to have more property tax revenue to fund services and fund the township. So anything we do, we need to make sure we have revenue to pay for that, or we find more efficiencies to compensate for it. So that's just a little bit about my ideas and what I have on my mind. I don't know if you have any more questions or.
Well, that's a good segue because we're going to get into the questions. So thank you, ladies, very much for giving us a little bit of your background and some of your vision. I think it's helpful for the residents and especially the attendees who are on here tonight to get to hear from you directly. And so that's very helpful. So we're going to go to the questions. I know we have quite a few already logged in, and then we'll have some more after that. So as the questions, as you get more questions from the audience, just please write it in and we'll get to it. So Walter, why don't we go ahead and start with the questions, and we'll get through those, and then we'll have a few questions for you as well. So Walter.
Thank you. I want to encourage the attendees. It's your turn now to participate. So let's get some questions up here. We've got some, and I'll start. All right, first question. In 2017, we voted not to fund an extension of Woodlands Parkway, but Montgomery County is going ahead with a road called Merchants Way, which connects 249 with 2978 by skirting the western boundary of the Woodlands. How will you prevent the widening of Woodlands Parkway due to increased traffic? I think I'll direct that question to Ann, since she's got probably more background on the infamous widening of Woodlands Parkway.
Absolutely, Walter, thank you. One, I was not for the extension of Woodlands Parkway when it was very first opposed, and we as a community overwhelmingly said no. With that said, no, there is the discussion, and it appears to momentum. I think it's important that we meet with our county officials. One would be Commissioner Riley as well, to share with them that that is not something we in the Woodlands want. We don't want to be a cut through from 2978 to 45. We spoke loud and clear when that came before us. I think it initially came before us in 2014. I think right before I went on the board in 2015, and then it continued to populate for discussion. But the township board, since I have been a member since 2015, we have been very outspoken, and under past leadership, we're able to not make that happen. And so I think working with and having our voice heard that that is something that we do not want is a good first step.
Cindy, Tricia, do you have anything to add? Cindy, go ahead.
I would just add to that. I was not in favor of that extension as well. I think that we are already getting a lot of cut through traffic, and I've been studying a little bit. There's some traffic studies that were done by the county, and there's some ideas that we could have there. We could work with the county, I think, to instill some rules regarding who can cut through and that sort of thing. But again, those are county roads, so we would have to work closely with them. But yeah, I definitely did not want the parkway to cut through to 249. So I'm glad we voted that down.
Tricia, do you have any comments?
No, I just agree with both Cindy and Ann.
I failed to mention, if you have particular candidates you want to direct your question to, be sure to put that in your question. And we have one here for Tricia. Would you have voted for incorporation? Why or why not?
No, I would not have voted for incorporation. We have a wonderful government structure where we have all the benefits of a city without the expense of roads. We don't have the expense of maintaining a separate police department, and we've not manipulated is probably not the best word, but we have used state law to our advantage so that we have the advantages of being a city. For example, we're collecting the sales tax from alcohol sales now, And so if it's not broken, why would we blow everything up? And it would also be very costly. There's no way our taxes would not increase if we incorporated. And I think Anne said this earlier, that we would not have the no new revenue rate for our property taxes had we incorporated.
Anne, do you have any thoughts on the matter? Anne has muted herself.
You're on mute, Ann.
That we were able to offer the no new revenue rate simply because of the high hotel and sales tax. Do I believe we would have done 17.14 cents for $100 valuation if we had incorporated? Probably not. What they said. But I do have one other clarification, if I may. The Woodlands Township Board has not to date discussed about the Goggins Mill Village Center. We were not a part of Howard Hughes and the county. Are we hopefully going to be a part pending board approval in public use spaces? And it will be on our agenda in October. Now that agreement has been is official, we will bring it towards the board for public use. But we were not a part of the Howard Hughes and the county agreement. Just for clarification.
Cindy, back to incorporation. Yes or no?
Incorporation, no. And I really gave it a fair chance. Honestly, I like to look at all the data and make sure that I'm, making a fair decision and consider all viewpoints. But when we looked at the data and studied it a little bit, I just couldn't see that our taxes would not go up. And definitely our police force, having to create your own police force right after the COVID shutdowns, when the world had gone a little bit crazy, was going to be really, really difficult. And we would probably spend about twice what we spend today on law enforcement. So that would clearly cause us to have to raise taxes. So I voted no. And I still stand by that decision and the residents' decision. It was passed by 67%, I believe.
All right, on to the next question. A question about enforcement of the covenants. The township seems unable to enforce covenants, specifically barking dogs, street parking, and fireworks. How will you bring about much needed enforcement of these and other covenants? Let's start with Cindy this time.
Yeah, I've heard some of the complaints at the township meetings, and I know we don't really have the right currently to, we don't have any noise ordinances in the Woodlands. I understand that. So is that something that we might be able to take upon ourselves? Possibly. We can explore that. I know that one of the solutions that has been proposed is reforestation as far as road noise goes. And I know that the township board is putting $1 million into reforestation for sound barriers. But as far as those things go, really, I think the best way to help control those things under our current structure is by getting to know your neighbors and have good relationships with them. And then you can, people are more cooperative when you know them, quite honestly. So that's my stance today, but hoping that we can do something more in the future.
Anne, do you want to comment on that question?
The covenants are ideally to enforce the beauty of this community we live in. However, there are challenges. One, as was mentioned by either Tricia or Cindy, with the revitalization in some of the homes that have been here for 50 years and need repair. With that said, there are some programs that the township has partner with. One is Interfaith of the Woodlands, serving our seniors to go in and help paint and restructure, as well as they working with many of the faith-based community to have them involved also. Is it perfect right now? Absolutely not. Is there more that we can do? Absolutely there is. And it is something that I think will need to be addressed now, rather than wait 5 years from now.
Tricia, what about your thoughts on stopping dogs from barking and street parking and no fireworks?
Actually, this is the number one thing that we hear about at my village when people come to talk to us. It's always about the parking and the dogs barking. And that actually was one of the big reasons why a lot of people wanted to incorporate, because we don't currently have the authority to police the noise ordinances and the parking. So I would like the board to consider at some point looking at our legislation to see if we could obtain that authority, because then we truly would function like a city. And I think that's the one thing that really bothers residents a lot with our structure, is the noise ordinance and the parking.
I have a little follow-up question. The township enabling legislation does allow the township to enact regulations for itself to promote safety and health and a variety of other topics. Has the township looked into using its regulatory power to deal with some of these, I don't want to call them peripheral issues, well, barking dogs, street parking, fireworks, and a lot
Quality
of
of life.
annoyances to our daily life in the woodlands? And could you address that?
Yes, absolutely, Will Walter. You and I've had long discussions prior to this year on the opportunity to expand our enabling legislation. And it's something last December that I remembered and was a priority for us to look at as we move forward. With that said, our lobbyists felt that the mixed beverage tax, and not the TPID, but the economic development zone, was a beginning. There are several others in addition to the regulatory power that we as a township could consider if the board so desires, and working with our lobbyists as we move forward. And that is one of the items that have for the next legislative decision, pending that the board approves the desire to move forward on that. Thank you.
Back to our attendee questions. Takas, however you pronounce that, decided not to provide fiber-based internet to portions of the woodlands, especially in part of Grogan's Mill. What can you do to convince Takas that all of the woodlands can be served, even those on the south side of Sawdust Road, Grogan's Point and High Oaks, close paren? Cindy, have you got any thoughts on fiber-based internet?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that you're having that problem. I didn't realize that they didn't go all throughout the woodlands. So, well, that might be a good opportunity again with, the word I've used 10 times today is collaboration, talking to them to see what we could get done differently. Anne may know more about that issue, having been sitting
If I
on.
may, yeah,
Mhm.
if I may, Walter, no, when they very
Right ahead,
first
Ann.
when they very first started in the woodlands, met with them, and I think other board members at that time did also. What they told me was a neighborhood had to have a certain percentage, and it may have changed now, but a certain percentage of the residents in that neighborhood that wanted their internet services, and then they would go. But if there was a pocket, only a small pocket of individuals in the neighborhood that wanted it, that in all probability at this point in time, they would not move forward. And that may have changed. This has been several years ago. And it was a lengthy discussion because there were neighborhoods that did not want them. There were some neighborhoods that did want them. And the rationale, when we met with them, they were located, their office was over, I believe, on Timberlock. And that was their rationale and reasoning at that time.
Tricia, internet-based, fiber-based internet. Any thoughts, comments?
I do remember when Takas came in and did all the digging. I think Anne is correct about having to have a certain percentage of the neighborhood, and just to go along with Cindy's point is, I think that is a conversation that you would have to have. I don't have enough specific information.
All right, we've talked about Panther Creek Village and revitalization. This one's directed to Tricia, so I'll let her give the first answer. But the question to all three of you is who is endorsing you and why? And you're up first, Tricia.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I remember it all. Commissioner Nowak, Sheriff Henderson, the 4 remaining board members, Brad Bailey, Richard Franks, Linda Nelson, Kyle Watson, Ann Snyder, former chairman of the board, Nelda Luce Blair, Bruce Tuff, the Professional Firefighters Association, which I'm very proud of, Houston Association of Realtors. I'm trying to make sure I haven't forgotten any right now. Kevin Brady, Reverend Rob. I should have written this down, but that's a good summary right now.
Okay, Cindy.
Yeah, well, recently I was informed that I'm being backed by Houston Association of Realtors, and I think that is going to be announced this week. I haven't seen that yet. The Woodlands Firefighters Association, they are so wonderful. I really appreciate them. And then personally, Dr. Ann Snyder, and then the current board members, such as Brad Bailey and Linda Nelson and Kyle Watson and Richard Franks, for sure. In addition, Congressman Kevin Brady is endorsing me. The Commissioner Nowak is endorsing me. Former board members Nelda Blair and former board member Bruce Tuff are endorsing me. And I should have written mine down too, because I need to know that a little bit better. But that's a good list of people that if you wanted to know a little bit more about me, I think you could reach out to any of those people and they could tell you.
Ann, tell us about your endorsements.
Well, always my most important is the residents. You know, I'm honored to have, of course, the firefighters have been very fortunate during my tenure that they've always supported me, as well as HAR. With that said, I think you work for and want to listen to the people who live, work, play, and pray here. So those are, those two entities, but predominantly the residents. On my Facebook page, I think there's a list. My biggest endorser or supporter is my husband. I would not be here right now if he did not say, okay, we're going to do it one more time. And all my little kids, they're excited to see Ann Snyder signs. So I know that kind of was too much information, Walter, but that is my response.
Walter, before we go on,
we've got time for one more question.
Yeah, but Walter, before we go on, I got a quick question for the candidates. The Woodlands is a very complicated entity, if you will, and we have to work with others. And one of the most important topics that have come up in the recent years is water, the need for water, and subsidence. And I'm just wondering if each of you might just give us a very comment on what your vision is as to how it relates to water conservation and subsidence issues, and what role do you see the Woodlands Township playing in that in the regional area? You know, what do we do regionally? How can we participate? And what role do you see the Woodlands playing in that very important topic?
Okay, well, thank you, Ted. One, remember years ago when meeting with Mr. Mitchell, two things I remember just distinctly. One, him telling me our most precious resource is the water. Ann Snyder. I remember it as if it was yesterday. With that said, we reestablished the One Water Task Force last fall, first quarter of 2023, and are looking forward to working with the Woodlands Water, with SJRA, with also the entity in Conroe, because it's a regional, if not a state, challenge. Is subsidence occurring here in the Woodlands? Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone who says it's not, we need to take them to the different areas, especially in the Cochran's Crossing area. So again, it's working together. It's addressing the need, and hopefully between all the different parties, we can do what's best for all of us.
Tricia, Cindy, do you have any additional thoughts, comments?
I was just going to say this issue is particularly interesting to me because really I didn't understand it, and I've heard different arguments for, you know, over water and our aquifers. And I'm originally from San Antonio, where the Edwards Aquifer was always in the news. It was always an issue and a concern. So I think that's why it is of interest to me. But basically, like Ann said, it is a regional issue. And it sounds like there's a disagreement on the data, and there's really not a governing force statewide to tell you this is what the data is. I think those entities are just going to have to come together and come to an agreement on what solutions are for water in the future, and how we manage it, and etc. But I think we have great partners in the area that want to do what's right for the community, and I think they'll work for the Woodlands if we give them a chance.
Tricia?
I was pleased to see the One Water Task Force started again in, I think it was February of last year. And I would like to see us use our voice to represent the residents in a stronger way going forward. I think our community, I live in Cochran's Crossing, so I know that there are issues with subsidence, but if a community has major flooding, that is a huge deterrent for future homeowners to come in, and we just need to be very careful about that and work with everyone around us. And that's all about relationships, which is, I think, Cindy and Ann, I think that's almost the theme of this whole conversation, is having good relationships with our partners so that we work together and can have the best outcome for the residents of the Woodlands.
All right, the last attendee question. Are any of your campaigns financed in whole or in part by the Howard Hughes Corporation? Ann?
No. Have never accepted money from Howard Hughes Corporation or the previous developer. It just has never been part. I've always been one that I'm my own voice.
Cindy?
Well, no, and it's illegal to accept from a corporation. I don't know if everybody knows that, but I know that some other political groups that I'm involved with, but that would be illegal.
Tricia?
Absolutely not. I'm funded probably right now. 22 individuals throughout the community have donated to my campaign, which makes me feel so proud.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about campaign financing, because having run for a township and lost my, I can tell you that these campaigns are extremely expensive. So if you support any one of these fine candidates, please consider writing them a check, sending them a credit card donation, because they'll put it to good use. All right, my editorial point. Ted, anything else?
No, we'll wrap up with this. Thank you, ladies, very much. You bring a lot of credibility and value to the Township Board. We're very honored to be able to support you and to put the word out there on your behalf. So we invite each of our attendees tonight to visit your respective campaign websites for what they might be able to do to help. And as Walter said, these campaigns unfortunately are not free, and so they can use your help. Township Future going forward will be here to present topics of interest to you, the citizens of the Woodlands. We hope that you will continue to follow us at townshipfuture.org. We're planning, and hopefully we can pull it off, some sort of special presentation during election night. We'll see how that comes out, and we'll put that information out as it comes along. Just as a reminder, early voting does start October 23rd. So make sure you know where you can vote at the early voting locations. And early voting ends November 3rd. Election day is November 7th. Please be informed. We want to provide you with more information as we come along. Again, we'd like to thank the three candidates who joined us tonight, and we'd like to thank all of you who joined us tonight as well. So with that, Walter, take us out.
Well, again, thanks everybody for participating, and see you at the polls. Good night.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Thank you, ladies.